Hello, everyone. This is W, aka William, host of the High Art on the Edge page. In 2022 of July, I spoke with Peter Duggal, a very creative and intelligent artist from Birmingham, England. We spoke about his work with Wolfgang Fleur as they had released an album called Magazine One. Peter also shared his love and passion for electronic music and inspired albums, as well as growing up in England. So sit back and enjoy this very scintillating and entertaining conversation with one of England's finest artists, Peter Duggal. Good morning, everyone. This is W here on the High Arts on the Edge page. It is Friday, July 8th, 9:02 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, out here in sunny California. Um, I have a special guest here today. He comes speaking to us all the way from Hebden Bridge, England, which is a place I've heard wonderful things about. But we're not here to so much focus on that area, maybe perhaps its influence. But Peter Duggal is here to join us in a conversation regarding his work as a producer and musician and all the work that he's contributed to um, over the course of many, many years. And yet he still looks like he's 25 years old. So, Peter, are you here?
I am here, yeah.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. And hi, everyone. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining or watching on replay or whatever you're doing. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, by the way, if you're tuning in, feel free to send Peter a question. Say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. So, Peter, before we get into all the nuts and bolts of kind of your work, how the hell do you look so young? What's the secret? What's the elixir you're taking here?
It's just a special filter I've got on my webcam. I look terrible, really.
That filter is probably on demand right now.
But thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind.
I want to talk about kind of the history of a little bit of your childhood, if you don't mind, and how that kind of influenced who you are today and kind of the makeup of what you've been doing over the years. So, my understanding, you grew up in a rather large family. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's 6 of us, the kids. So there's my mum and dad. There's 6 of us. I've got 3 sisters and 2 brothers. We grew up in a very inner city, a pretty deprived part of Birmingham called Handsworth. Although we moved when I was about 7 or 8 to a slightly nicer part of Handsworth. But yeah, we had a pretty small house for the first 7 or 8 years of my life. It was like literally a 2.5 bedroom house, and there were a lot of people in there. My grandmother lived with us as well, and various other people would drop in and stay for a while as well. So yeah, it was quite crazy, cramped and chaotic, but fun. A lot of fun.
Where are you in the order of siblings?
I'm the youngest, actually. So.
Okay. Tell us a little about that.
I mean, it's difficult to know how that affects you as a person, and your personality. But people do say, "Oh, I knew you'd be the youngest." People who I've got to know, and I guess there's certain traits that the youngest sibling has. But I mean, it was great in many ways having older siblings who were getting into things like music and fashion and going out and all the rest of it, and just because they were all into different things, I was always hearing different things and seeing different things, and all their friends and all the people I would meet. It was quite an exciting thing growing up in that kind of environment and being the youngest. But yeah, it was very chaotic, and I'd often be looking for places to go and hide. And I'm generally quite solitary by nature, so maybe that's as a result of that as well.
So where in that family line did you kind of acquire these artistic sensibilities? Was that through your brothers and sisters? Was that from your parents?
Yeah, I mean, we're all sort of slightly that way inclined, really, in different ways. Um, and what was also interesting was, my parents, my dad in particular. I mean, he was a little bit of a rebel, really. Whereas most of my friends, particularly my Indian friends and my Pakistani friends, and we were all, they were all our parents were like the first wave of immigrants, really, who came over to England to help rebuild the country after the war. Work in all the services, work in the health service, in the factories. But generally, they very much held on to their traditions, because it's a pretty hostile place back then. Racial tensions, and politically it was really quite troubling. Not much change there, really, has it? But it was quite troubling, when we had we'd have like the Conservative Party in those days used to leaflet the door of the houses round by us, saying, if you want a coloured for a neighbour, vote Labour. That was their slogan. And they used stronger words than coloured as well, openly, so we were very friendly. So I think the traditions and the culture were very, very much held on to. They were very strongly held on to. So, but my dad was a little bit of a, he was always encouraging us to be our own, do our own thing. There was never any pressure to be a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer, as there was with many of my friends. I mean, maybe secretly, that would have been nice, but it was very free in some ways, and I think that was really, really quite liberating, and I think ultimately that helped us to be able to pursue these kind of artistic avenues.
Can you tell us a little bit about that first, if you can remember and recall that first time music really, you kind of just started to sponge it up and you realize, wow, there's some power here. It's really affecting me.
Yeah, I was probably 6 or 7, and it was. I mean, I was into so much different kinds of music anyway, but just on a surface level. And but when I first heard some real kind of dystopian electronic music, that really got me. And the whole electro scene was picking up at the time. And because I lived next to a what's called a council estate over here, I don't know what you call it over there, but it's it was basically just an estate of housing that was built by the local council, and you'd have all kinds of families from all parts of the world that would live there. Like I said, it wasn't a very rich area, so we'd all congregate on the street there, and you'd meet people. And I remember someone playing some electro music. I think it was Clear by Cybertron or El Nafish by Hashim or something, but it was a really dark dystopian electronic track, and that was me. I was like, what is this? I'd never heard anything like it. I was very much into technology as well, so that's where that kind of coalesced, with the whole music thing. And yeah, I just that was a real moment I remember. And when you're asking me that question, I can, the picture comes into my mind exactly of, with so much detail, which is pretty amazing, really, because I can't remember what happened yesterday half the time. But when you asked me that question, I immediately was transported back to that specific moment in time.
So as you were discovering this, did your siblings kind of go off another path, or was there anyone else in that family that had joined you in this voyage?
No, I mean, they weren't really into that. And maybe that was part of the attraction, It's like, it was your own thing. It was my own thing. And at the time, my brothers were in a reggae band, and they used to rehearse in my mom and dad's bedroom. So that was quite cool as well, because, you'd have to go in sometimes and hear all this heavy dub reggae, and there'd be like, clouds of smoke coming out of the bedroom and all the rest of it. But yeah, so so whilst I was exposed to all those things, and they were all into their own individual things, and I really liked a lot of those things, this was something that just really, really took me away, and the times at the time, the political climate was. There's a lot of scary things happening, There's a lot of worries about nuclear war. There was a lot of worries about computers taking over the world. There was a lot of worries about people losing their jobs, and it just seemed to fit into all that. I quite liked this dystopian fear that was, the soundtrack to that, which was this kind of music, really.
Which we'll delve into in a little bit. Tell us about your experience at school. Did you have a teacher that inspired you with regards to music? Did you take lessons or anything?
No.
Okay.
I mean, primary school was just fun, and I just remember it being as fun. But secondary school, from the second I started to the second I left, I absolutely despised every second I was there. And
Why?
It was just horrific. It was absolutely horrific. I mean, I went to a grammar school, which was really quite prestigious at the time to get into. It was the local grammar school, but like only 3 or 4 people from my entire primary school got into this grammar school. And obviously it was like, very celebratory, and it's like, but as soon as you got there, it's fairly draconian. There were like teachers who wore cloaks and gowns and had canes. It was like some kind of comedy sketch from the from the 60s or something, but it just wasn't funny. They were really quite brutal and barbarous people, and it was horrible. I mean, that transition from the safe kind of nice environment of primary school to a really quite barbaric secondary school was not nice, as a child of that age. Plus the fact it was a single sex school, so it was it was an all boys school, obviously. I just think that is just such a ridiculous thing to put any child through, something so segregated like that, especially at the point where you're becoming a teenager, and you think, I know what, we'll just we'll just make sure you don't meet. I mean, I was okay because I had sisters, and I knew how to interact with females, but so many kids from my school came out just so messed up, to this day, still pretty messed up as a result of that,
Which is so interesting, because you knew you were going to go to that school. Did you combat with your parents about that? Did you push against, or did you say, no, this sounds great?
I didn't really. I mean, I was quite a good boy, really. I was quite quiet and just got on with things. And but as soon as I could get out, I got out, which was in the 5th. It's after 5 years here, you can either stay and do your what's called your A levels, or you can leave. And nobody left this school. It's like, what are you doing? You're crazy. So I actually decided to leave, and I went to college. I was one of only 3 or 4 people from the whole year who left, who dared leave. And I didn't actually tell my dad that I was doing that at the time. I just did it. And I mean, he wasn't particularly happy with me about that, to be honest. But I decided at the time I would do it and just take the flak, because I had to get out, rather than just appease people and stay there, So
we're going to come back to that in just a second. We have some friends here saying hello. Paul says, great to see and hear this great artist. Hello, Paul. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks,
Kathy
Paul.
just wrote, good afternoon, all. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you, Peter. Just arrived during school chat. Perfect timing. By the way, Kathy and anyone else tuning in, feel free to send in a question for Peter. We will get to him. So, Peter, I want to quickly go back to what we were just talking about in this time period. When I hit high school, I was starting to feel that teenage angst and blah, blah, blah. I was getting into really kind of, 9 Inch Nails, Skinny Puppies, some really dark stuff. What were you like during your teenage years?
Like I said, I was pretty I just got on with things, and I quietly got on things. But I tended to escape. So my escape was, like I was talking about family before, and I had quite a big family, and there was always lots of, Indian families tended to have like relatives over every other night, and it was always great. It was always lively. But I was always always wanted to find my own space, and I found that in that music and in computers and technology. So I tend to just go and hide away and just a bit of a dreamer, really. Trying to go to different worlds, really. So I never really exhibited it by kind of becoming a goth or anything like that, anything kind of external. It was all sort of just I kind of just got on with things a little bit and quietly lost myself in different worlds, whether it was through creating something on the computer or writing some music or something.
Would you consider yourself at that time to be an introvert?
Like,
Like,
it's funny.
did you go out and go to shows or parties, stuff like that?
Not really, because I mean, part of the byproduct of going to a pretty did I tell you how horrific my school was? I did, didn't I? I'm probably overstating it, to be honest. It was pretty bad, but so that kind of school environment, and coupled with the jostling for position by all the pupils and wanting to be kind of hard or be a bit of a bully or what, I tended to just not engage with any of that. So I tended to hide away from it all. So maybe, I was a kind of forced introvert in a way, really. I don't think it was like my natural inclination to be like that. I think it was more a product of just my surroundings and what was happening at that time. So yeah, but I guess I don't know. I've never really. It's quite a tricky one, that. I don't really know. You'd have to ask some of my friends, really. My wife, they'd probably all say, yeah, he's an introvert.
Well, if anyone's tuning in, it's really good friends with Peter. You can answer that question for us. And Paul, we just saw that question that you just typed. We'll get to it. Okay, so you've talked, and we're going to get into this technology aspect. Can you remember your first playtime with technology? Mine was Atari.
Oh yeah.
And then Nintendo just took over. So what was yours?
There was a scheme in this country when I was about 8, a national scheme, government scheme, to get at least one computer into every school. So we had a computer arrive at the school. I think it was a BBC Micro. They probably weren't popular in America, actually.
No.
They were quite popular here, particularly in schools. And I was watching a great video with Vince Clarke actually yesterday, because he used the BBC Micro to write all those early records, and I think he had about 8 of them or something. But anyway, so yeah, we used to have one at school. The teachers kind of didn't know what this thing was, right? This thing just landed, and it was like, I think they just didn't even know to switch it on. But eventually we had this thing running, and then we'd have these lessons, and we all got on with it straight away. So when the teacher used to go out the room, we used to break into like the educational programs and put swear words on the screen and things, and then they'd come back in and they just didn't know what was going on. So
love it.
So that was probably the first real interaction. And then we got a computer at home because my dad bought us one. You could always wangle one in those days by saying it will really help with education and schoolwork. And then obviously you got one, and then that's the last thing you ever did on it, right?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's kind of we had a BBC Micro at home then as well, which was great.
Did you ever get into like Nintendo's, now it's Xbox, the Switch? Where are you at?
No, because I'm not really very good at games, and I'm quite simplistic at heart, really. So when it came to games, I like the old ones, like Space Invaders and things like that. Things that are simple, but we've got an Xbox here now because my son plays on it, and I did get into Fortnite over lockdown, I have to admit.
There we go.
That's brilliant. But that's the first proper game I've really played, and that's because we didn't go out for 2 years, and it was either in the studio walking the dog or playing Fortnite, really.
Yeah, and
But
I definitely wanna put that on hold right now, the whole pandemic and how you kinda dealt
yeah,
with that. Kathy says, "Yep, BBC computer in our school too, one to share between all students." Chris Gardner says, "Hello." Hi, Chris, nice to have you here. Okay, so when did you begin to realize not only your love for music, but now you are a creator of music. Now you're twiddling with knobs and putting these pieces together to create these sounds and these beats. Tell us
yeah.
about.
I think I was probably about 16 when I started actually writing because, like I said, my brothers were in a band, so my brothers were in the music industry as well. They worked together for a long time, um, and so there was equipment in the house, and all of this. It was really nice because it all coincided with the appearance of a computer called the Atari ST, which I don't know if you remember the Atari ST, but it was the first computer that had MIDI ports in the side as standard. So
Okay.
what it meant was, an Atari ST, and we had a synthesizer that was a rolling D10, so it could play different sounds at once. You could play a string part, a bass part, piano part. You could. It effectively acted like 8 different synthesizers and a drum machine. So you connected these two things together. You put a bit of software on, and it was like, wow, it's like having this. It all just suddenly opened up for me. So that was in about 1987, actually, I think. So it was about when I was about 15. And I just, started writing then. It was great. It was switch the computer on and you were away.
Were some bands at that time like New Order or
Yeah.
Depeche Mode or Erasure, or because you mentioned Vince Clarke?
Yeah.
Were there bands at that time that were starting to feed that, provide the fuel?
Yeah, well, I was learning to play the guitar as well, and I was into. I mean, I wasn't just into electronic music; I was into loads of stuff. And there was another really pivotal moment, and I remember that really vividly. And it was when I saw we had Top of the Pops over here, obviously, which was like on one of the channels, and then the rival channel ITV, they did their own version, which was very short lived because it was a bit naff, and it was called the Roxy. And I remember one night in 1987, and I was vacuuming my bedroom, and why was I vacuuming my bedroom? It was probably the only time I ever did it, and and, and I had a TV in my bedroom at that time, and this program came on, and I turned the vacuum off to do something, but New Order were on it, and they were doing True Faith, and it was just so beautiful. I just thought, oh my God, the bass and the drums and that kind of the way it all the acoustic instruments, and they just had something. There was just something really beautiful about that. And then I just really got into New Order, and I think Technique came out about a year and a half later, which was just one of my all-time favorite records.
Yeah.
But all that stuff and just the whole approach, the Factory Records thing, and I kind of there was just such a naivety about everything to do with not just New Order but Factory, and you just can't be like that anymore and be successful because everything has to be done to the nth degree. And I just love all the freedom of that time, the artistic freedom, the record company not really knowing what they were doing, although they were trying to present this idea they knew what they were doing. And
Right.
So that was a big moment as well. I really got into that, and really Substance came out around that time, I think, which was a fantastic record. So that was a big record for me, Substance and Technique.
So did that kind of move you into bands such as 808 State? Were you getting into the deeper, I don't know, for lack of better terms, rave, dub? Were you going deeper and deeper and all that?
Yeah, I was really into the rave stuff. I wasn't really so much into the, all the kind of like hands in the air, piano-y kind of stuff. I never really kind of got into that. But the darker rave stuff and the more kind of, that's why the whole bleep scene I got really, really heavily into. And and obviously I had the record out at that time, which did really well. But yeah, so that was, I was into the first 808 State records, and there was obviously a guy called Gerald when he did Voodoo Ray. I thought that was a great record. Very sort of sparse but heavy. So I mean, and it was the Voodoo Ray record that led to me getting a record deal, really, because I had the 12-inch and music I was writing at the time, people were telling me sounded quite good. And Voodoo Ray actually had the address of the record label on the front cover. And I was just writing one day, and it just happened to be at the front. And I saw the late, and I just thought, why don't I just write them a letter and send a tape, a cassette. So that's what I did. And 2 days later, I got a phone call from them saying that they wanted me to sign a record deal straight away, and they put me on a train, and off I went to Liverpool to sign a record deal. So yeah, it was.
Tell us about that feeling.
It was great, obviously, in many ways, just because it's just exciting, isn't it? I was 16 or something, and I was just about to go to Sixth Form College, or I just started at Sixth Form College. So I put all that school stuff behind me, and it was like, you meet so many fantastic people when you go to Sixth Form College. My son's actually just about to start Sixth Form College, and I kind of I'm so excited for him because I can just see how the next couple of years are going to pan out. But yeah, it was really exciting. Looking back, I think I was fairly, it just seemed normal to me. I mean, I didn't like capitalize on it in any way. And just, it was just, I'd very occasionally, if I was going out with a girl, I'd just accidentally walk past a record shop and say, "Oh, who's that?" "Oh, it's me." Really embarrassing.
In your room at the time.
It's really embarrassing. Yeah, it never lasted long.
So tell us. So Doggy, like, I've always thought about what's going to be if I ever became an artist, which I'm clearly not cut out to be, but what would be my moniker? What would be that brand? So was that something you just popped up in your mind, or did you have a friend, or did you just write some ideas and put them in a fishbowl and you just drew?
You know what? When someone asks you to name something, I find it like one of the most difficult things, because nothing's ever right for some reason, And and Doggy was just like, it's probably just exasperation in the end. And it was like, I had to use a name. I couldn't think of a name. Everything I thought of just sounded really corny or cheesy or pretentious. And in the end, it was just like a lot of people just called me Doggy as a nickname,
Okay.
I think it's just because I had 2 dogs and my surname sounds a little bit like, Doggy. So it just became a name that people called me. So when the label said, "Look, you need a name," it was like, "Oh, we'll just call it that," But I quite like it now. I think it's sort of
Tell us about your skills back then versus now. How far have you come along?
I think technically, obviously, you're always improving, and obviously the technology is so sophisticated now that you kind of adapt with it, or you just, you get left behind very quickly. And in a sense, I did really get left behind, because in the 2000s, kind of got married, had kids, and life sort of, priorities just changed a little bit. I always did the music, but because I had less and less time to do it, I kind of got left behind a tiny bit. It was only about 9 years ago that I decided, I'm going to get back on it properly. And the kids were a little bit older. Yeah. And yeah, I think, the what you can do on a machine now is just the stuff dreams are made of. You can create an absolute symphony on your phone almost. To me, when I was 15, that thing was the stuff of dreams. So whilst then it was a lot more primitive, it was still seemed at the time really sophisticated. So I got pretty skilled pretty quickly, just because I loved machines, and I loved the idea you could get a computer and you could do something and a sound would come out of a synthesizer that was either next to it or on the other side of the room. That just sort of was just like magic to me. So it wasn't a matter of working at it or learning about it, it was just all just, I loved every second of it, you know. So you're always going to learn if you love it like that. So I know I've got that back again the last 8 or 9, 10 years, you know. It's sort of, you know, I love it.
So I'm looking at your background right now behind you. So are you in your studio, or where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm in my studio.
Okay.
It's very small. It's only about 8 foot long by 6 foot wide.
Can
But
you move your camera just a little bit so we can take a look at that machinery that
over there,
yeah,
yeah.
you want to tell the viewers what that is?
Well, you can have a look down. There's my tea.
That's essential.
So that's just my little analog corner. They're all Korg synthesizers. This is a Korg Poly 6, which I love. I've also got an MS-10 here and an MS-20 here, which are both monophonic synths, but they just have a really beautiful, warm. It's a phenomenal sound that, especially this MS-20 makes. I mean, it's so lovely. But yeah, I've been through a process of slimming everything down, so I just have very limited stuff in my racks on either side here. I used to have stuff all over the walls. It was ridiculous. But I've built a little loft space above me, which you can't see, which is where all my synthesizers live now. So what I decided to do was get rid of everything and just have the ones I really use on a day-to-day basis down here. So I've got some really nice stuff up there actually, but you know, it's not stuff I use regularly. So I'll bring it down. It's like I always say it's like when you get what's a good analogy? You know, if you're taking your kids out, you know, it's nice to just spend. Sometimes it's nice to spend a day with just one of them and really focus on them, and then another day. You know, before it was like I had my kids in here and everyone else's as well. You know, it was ridiculous. Now I just concentrate on getting to really into the guts of these machines. You know,
The discipline of your work. I want to get into that if you don't mind. You seemed very disciplined. You seem like, okay, I'm going to get into my studio. I'm just going to tune out the world, and I'm really going to focus on this seed idea. Tell us about your process and what you go about.
You know what? I don't think I'm disciplined in that respect, because what tends to happen with me is I sort of just end up in here and I end up working on something for about 8 hours. And afterwards, I look back and just think, I just don't, you know, it was just all like, I don't know, like someone else was controlling me or something, you know. I'm not saying I take drugs or anything. I don't do any of that stuff. But I kind of just naturally just gravitate in towards this room. Maybe it's just something subconscious, you know, where I'm feeling a bit creative. But often it just tends to bypass my head and I just get on with it. Sometimes, particularly working on, you know, especially the album over the last couple of years, you know, there's a lot of stuff you have to be disciplined then, you know, if you're working on, you know, I mean, some tracks can take 3 years to finish, you know, there can be, I always add a number to the file name every time I do a new mix of it, you know, and some tracks can get to over 200 versions, you know, and each version can be, you know, many hours of work. So over a period of time, it's like, you know, I think that's where the discipline kicks in. You know, in that last 5%, you know, the first 95% is all creative, and you know, it's all just, you know, unless that stuff comes naturally anyway, it can be really hard, you know, to kind of to get that stuff out of you, whatever art you're doing, you know, whether you're painting, whether you're writing a book. So I tend not to try and come in here and say I'm going to do a track unless I'm really feeling like it, because it's just too hard, you know. So that last 5% is the bit that takes 90% of the time, and that's where the craft and the discipline comes in. You can be editing one syllable on one word for 6 hours, you know, and when your family are walking past the room and they're hearing the same word over and over again, it's quite testing.
Do you prefer working on your own material versus, you know, if someone messaged you and said, "Hey, Peter, I'd love for you to do a reworking of the song, a remix"? What do you prefer there?
I like both, you know, but I have to love the song. Otherwise, I don't feel like I'm, I should do it. Really, I think I'd be a bit dishonest of me. So I don't do, I don't work like that just for money and, bring me something in and I'll whack something over the top of it and turn it around. I just couldn't do that. It's funny you posted actually Maps, the band Maps, James Chapman posted the thing earlier. I noticed you commented on it and I did as well. It's 9 years since that record Vicissitude came out, which was another pivotal moment, hearing one of the songs off that AMA, which really hit me for some reason. It was really beautiful. And it was just at the time I was getting back into writing, actually. So another beautiful thing about the internet and all that is just being able to be able to then just contact him. And I just told him, I said, this is beautiful. And we ended up chatting and I ended up remixing it and it ended up coming out on the reissue of the album, which is so that was really nice because it's not like a remix. It is a total rework. It's almost like treating that song as a really precious thing and wanting to do it justice, but in a different form, Sometimes that doesn't work because, you can't. I just heard something else in that song. I heard a different version that I thought would just complement it somehow whilst being true to the original. So, yeah, I mean, I love to rework stuff as long as I love it. Otherwise, right. Again, everything's hard work unless you love it, really, isn't it? But no, I do like writing my own stuff as well. I like both.
So it's like any material you hear of your own, like maybe, stuff that you wrote 20 years ago. Do you ever get there and go, ooh, I would love to redo that one again?
Yeah.
That sounds very rudimentary.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange because some songs are kind of, there's this song I wrote about 8 years ago, and I knew at the time it was really beautiful, and it's always been really precious. I listen to it now and again. Sometimes I don't listen to it for a year, but I never finished it because I could never finish it. It's missing something. I might never finish it, but it needs something, and I'm sure one day it will arrive, and then I know that'll be one of the most beautiful things I've ever written. But
what if you were to put that out to your fan base, send out what you already have, and then you ask that poignant question: what is missing from this song?
Yeah, I'm too nervous to do that, really, because I don't know, because I don't really like to put stuff out there until, I don't know, I'm really happy with it. Sometimes it feels like it's like leaving the house, I suppose, without any clothes on, that recurring dream that you have. I don't know, but maybe I should. Maybe I'm just a little bit, maybe I should just throw it out there and be a bit more. I might think about that one, William.
Yeah, I think it would be great. I would think that would be a great challenge. And I think that would be, and I was going to ask about your fan base here in a little bit, like kind of the.
I think the other thing I'm nervous about is that actually it's just rubbish. And it's just me that thinks it's good.
Well,
which it could be, which is why I've never finished it, But
we are our own worst critics, aren't we?
We are, yeah.
Does your wife? Do you ever ask her for opinions on? You've created something and you share with her and say, "What do you think of this?"
Yeah, obviously I do. Yeah, and my children as well. I mean, they're both really into music, and sometimes if we're on a car journey, it's like. Sometimes I'll put, especially when we were working on the record, I'd play early versions of songs and get, just see what they thought of them. It's quite a nice thing to do, really, But yeah, I sometimes do. Well, I sometimes quite like to not ask and just think, will they sometimes come in the room and say, "Oh, what's this?" That's good, because then that's totally unprovoked.
Yeah.
It's never happened, but maybe one day.
Well, and children, how honest they're going to be as well.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So tell us about a little bit. I want to know more about your fan base. How would you describe your fans?
I mean, I don't know about fans. I mean, there's people who obviously like some of the things I've done. And I don't know. The word fan is slightly, I don't know. What is a fan anyway? It's like someone who likes what you do, yeah. So,
yeah.
I don't know if I find it. I mean, the most special thing that happens to me in music is when someone messages me, like I messaged James Chapman about that song, to tell him it was really, it really moved me, and it actually had a profound impact on me, and I thought it was beautiful. I mean, that's all I want, really, because if one person says that, that's really, it's a beautiful thing. Don't really yearn for much more than that. On a music level, really. I mean, obviously, when people tell you they really love what you do, it's great, because that's why you do it. I mean, and likewise, I'm not, I don't mind people telling me they think it's terrible. It's fine. We all like different things. I think when people say, "Oh, it's all right," I mean, that's probably about the worst thing someone can say to you, because it's not had any effect at all on them. It's not made them, what's this, turn it off. I'd rather they just wanted to switch it off, than thought, oh, that's inoffensive.
I'm going to ask you a kind of a on the spot question here, if you don't mind. If you don't feel like answering, that's fine.
No,
and
I love
this kind of connects and threads to what Paul Sultana has asked. So you can message some of these artists, James Chapman of Maps, Peter Hook. What does that feel like? That, maybe you don't get that collaboration at times, and at times you do. I mean, does that even like cross your mind? Like, holy shit, I've connected to, obviously in Wolfgang, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Do you have to pinch yourself sometimes?
I mean, I don't know about pinch yourself, but I mean, I do sometimes think it's slightly odd. And when I was younger, when I was, listening to, say, a New Order record, like, and knowing kind of everything about, every song, and, how they were all put together, and reading everything about it. But then, as soon as you meet someone, I mean, and obviously, the nice thing again was Peter Hook really loved the demo version of Birmingham when he heard it, and that's a really lovely thing, just like someone you really admire creatively telling you that they really love something you do. Yeah, that's a really special moment for sure. But as soon as that moment is over and you're working on things, they kind of, everything changes really. You can't, I mean, I don't really get starstruck, if that's what you mean, because they're just people, really. I don't think I've ever been starstruck, because once you meet them, once you've sort of got to know them a little bit, they're just people, and they're either good people or they're not, and they're all really good, lovely people. So that's all that's important to me, really.
Paul asks, who else would you like to work with? He says, Peter, you've already collaborated with some seminal electronic artists. Who else would you like to work with?
It's an interesting one. We'll have to think about that one a little bit. Do they have to be alive? I guess they do, right?
We can go and use our imagination, however you feel like answering.
Yeah, I might think about that one a little bit and come back to it, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not avoiding that question. It's just I need a bit of time to think about it.
We have another friend that's Keith is here. Keith says hello. Hey Keith, nice to see you. Kathy says, aha, Peter has a cup of tea. I need to know what biscuits, cookies he has.
Cookies. Come on, Kathy, you know the answer to that, surely. She'll know. They're Foxy's Crunch Cream, of course.
What are they?
Foxy's Crunch Creams. They're the only biscuits allowed in my studio. Okay. You probably don't get them over there, do you?
I was going to say I've not heard of those. Sorry.
Yeah. We'll send you some over. I'll send you some over, William. How about that?
I would love that. Or next time I'm over there, which I'm hoping to get over there next summer.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm a big fan of Wimbledon. I love Wimbledon.
Oh, really?
Although it's been a bit of a bummer that now Nadal has been out. But
Yeah.
uh, so
We'll have to
let's
have a
talk.
cup of tea. We'll have a cup of tea together when you're
Oh,
over,
I love that.
and I'll
My
bring
God.
some biscuits for you. Yeah.
Is Kathy a friend in the local area or?
She's not in the local area, but I do know Kathy.
Got
We bonded over a love of biscuits.
Magazine One. Your work with Wolfgang.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you right now, but it's when this year is over, that album is going to go down as the top 10 for me.
Oh, that's really, really
I,
nice
it's
of you to say.
it's a fantastic album. I love the diversity and sound, this mood from piece to piece. Obviously, the collaborations that went on. Give us some nuggets. Give us some little stories in the creation of this.
Well, I guess I mean, it's something I'm really proud of, obviously, and me and Wolfgang worked really hard on it. And I mean, the whole lockdown, COVID pandemic thing helped. Spent a lot of time in the studio back and forth with Wolf. And that's why I think there's so many. I mean, the thing I'm particularly proud of on there is that I think there's a lot of layers in there in the sounds. I mean, you'll hear, as time goes on, more and more things will reveal themselves from those songs. Well, at least I hope they do, because there's a lot of work that went into them, and lots of little bits and pieces. But in terms of nuggets, I mean, there's it's hard to say, really. I mean, there was a nice moment where, Billionaire, that track, Symphony of Light, which is the second to last track.
Yes.
That's actually my wife Kate doing the backing vocals at the end on it. She's going to kill me for this.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, I'm not here to cause a divorce.
Yeah, no, she just had this. We had this melody between us, Wolfgang and me, and he really loved. So yeah, I just said, why don't you come in and just try this? And it was just perfect. It worked perfectly. So there's a little bit of information that that's a little nugget, I guess, is it?
No, that's great.
Yeah. I can feel my phone buzzing now. That's probably
yeah, that could change the whole course of your
It's
week.
all right. This isn't live, right? You can edit that bit out. It's fine. No, but yeah, so I mean, it was a fantastic thing to work on. Obviously, Wolfgang, just going back to your previous thing about, working with these people. I mean, craft work going back to my childhood were a massive thing for me, in the way that the Beatles are for some people, craft work were it. I mean, Computer Love is one of my favorite songs of all time. And, if I had a Desert Island Discs and it had 3 songs in it, that would be in there, So growing up and then, kind of working with Wolfgang obviously is really special, not least because he's just a fantastic person. He's a wonderful person, and he's almost like family, to me now. So working with him is really natural. Me and him just get on perfectly, creatively, as friends. When we're touring, it's just brilliant. We have a fantastic time, and I think all of that comes together. And when we work, we're very, I'm not. The other thing, going back to the Starstruck thing, is I'm not just like a yes man. I am a person who I can't work on something for months and months on end unless I love it, and we just happen to both love what we do together. And if I do something that he thinks doesn't sound right, then or is not going to work, he'll tell me, and vice versa. And we always get there in the end. So working on the songs was really natural. And we actually wrote so many songs that, which is why there will be a magazine too, because that's pretty much already complete, apart from maybe 1 or 2 songs. So, yeah, I mean, it's great. It's one of those, just when the chemistry's right, everything just flows naturally and just seems to work,
So what do you bring to the table that really complements the work with Wolfgang, and what does he bring? How do you two bring those qualities, that musicianship?
Um,
What
I wouldn't,
specifically?
I wouldn't say. Sorry, I sound like I'm just sitting on the fence with a lot of these answers, but it is genuinely the case. I'm not. I think it doesn't seem to be that we have this division of labor, where I do this and he does that. It is. I mean, obviously, with the lyrics and the vocals and all that side of it, he does by and large. I mean, there were a couple of tracks where I did write parts, things like lines and verses, or we work together on bits, but generally that's Wolfgang is very much the storyteller. He's the artist. He's the one with the vision for the songs, and he has the overall vision basically. And obviously it's his thing. So I guess where I have to be sensible is in what any producer does really, and that's to just understand where to how to nurture things, really, how to get the best out of Wolfgang, how to kind of encourage him along a pathway, which I think, oh my God, that's beautiful. I've had so many kind of shiver down the spine moments when he sent me things, and then just pushing gently that and working them to a logical conclusion. But then I guess I do a lot of the craft and the technical kind of, the editing and all that side of things I tended to take on as well, just because, I love that. I can sit in front of a screen looking at waveforms for the rest of my life,
Did you have deadlines for this that you had to meet? Or was it just a little bit of latitude in terms of when this thing had to get done by?
Not while we were working on it. And, when we started working on music, that we didn't really have an idea that we were going to do an album even. We just were writing songs together because we wanted to. But once it developed into the idea for an album on Wolfgang's side, and I mean, once there was a label in place and the deal, I mean, that's when there were deadlines, because obviously they have their schedules for release and all the rest of it. And then obviously once it came out, and all things like radio edits and single edits and getting things together for remixes and all that stuff, then that's when deadlines kind of kicked in. But during the actual writing process, up until the end, up until maybe the last one or two songs were done, there was we had kind of no deadlines at all, really. We didn't really know when we were going to be coming out of the pandemic, and everything was on hold then. I mean, we weren't going to be able to go on tour and do any promo for the record, so we were never going to put it out then. So yeah, if anything, we were being we couldn't have a deadline because we didn't know.
Right. I know so I'm gonna play a little game with you here, and if you don't know the answer, just say don't know. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna rattle off a song from the album, Magazine One.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell me if you can remember, because I know there's a lot of stuff going on in your head. Tell me the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the title of the track.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna start with, and I have to say it's one of my favorites, and it bookends the whole album. So Say No featuring Maps. What comes to your head?
Okay. So the very first thing that comes to my head is the melody that comes in after the first couple of verses, which was one of those moments when Wolfgang wrote that melody and sent it me, but he played it on his synthesizer. He's got a little synthesizer that he played it on, and I was just, I was like tingling. I thought that is, it's what it was, just the thing that was going to transform the whole, because we had the basic arrangement, and it was like, wow. And I'm tingling again now thinking about it. And then and then we changed it to work on we used I used an old Mellotron sound and mixed it with the sound of an old here's another little nugget for you, actually. So there's a Mellotron and I think it's an Orchestron mixed together. And as soon as took the melody, and I just couldn't wait for it to send it back to Wolfgang and sent it to him, and we were both like, oh, it just seemed to be one of those moments where everything just was perfect, and it was on that song. And it's a very special song for Wolfgang in particular, that one.
I could be wrong here. I hope I'm not wrong. But I remember when James Chapman announced that he had been part of this collaboration, that song, and I remember when he posted that, you could just hear the excitement in his words.
Mm.
No, it's a great song. All right, let's go to
Yeah.
Best Buy. Best Buy.
So Best Buy is one that I was actually not involved with at all in any way, shape, or form on the record. So that was U96 and Wolfgang.
Okay.
So I mean, I love it. It's a great track, and when he first played it to me, you know, it's kind of obviously it's quite quirky, and it's just Wolf. You know, the song is Wolfgang. It's great.
Is there a particular song in the album that you guys really struggled with in the creation of it? You just couldn't glue the pieces together? Or did things just kind of flow?
Things just flowed generally. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say the very first track was the last track that we did, Magazine, and the title track. And that's when there were things like, I think deadlines were looming and the rest of it by then. So, but you know, even that, it was very straightforward to finish. But yeah, I wouldn't say we struggled. I mean, you know, we had our moments, you know, don't get me wrong, throughout this process where which is natural, right? You know, you're going to, you know, have moments where you disagree on something, and
Sure.
but that's the beauty of working with someone who you can trust. You know, I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't be a yes man. I couldn't say, oh, you know, oh, that's brilliant, Wolf. You know, it's brilliant. But if I didn't feel it, you know, so. And you need that mutual trust in things, you know, not to be afraid of rejection of ideas or someone not feeling what you're feeling. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just part of the process, you know. It doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong. It just means it's not right for this.
Right. Now, for me, if I were working with Wolfgang, you know, or Peter, or whomever, I would have a little bit of fear inside of me thinking, oh my God, I'm working with these gentlemen who are legendary in their field of work. Did you ever at any time think like, okay, I better bring my A game here?
No, because I only ever, like I said to you before, I don't think I have a B game, in the sense that I don't come in the studio unless I'm feeling totally on it, you know, unless I'm loving what I'm doing. B games are hard, you know. They're kind of I don't mean that to sound arrogant, by the way. What I'm saying is I'm not saying everything I do is my A game, you know. I'm just saying, for me personally, you know, when it's hard, because I don't do this, you know, to pay the bills, if you like. I appreciate that some people do, and they have to work when they're on their B game or their C game, and they have to get things out the door. But I don't do that. So I really struggle if I'm not feeling it to get stuff out there, because you know, it's a two-way thing, writing music on your own. You know, I know you're on your own, but you know, there's got to be something coming back from the speakers that's firing you up, you know. And if there's not, you know, we all as artists, right? We all as musicians, we all have hundreds of songs that we've never finished because you've started and you've not managed to stay on that, in that zone throughout, you know. So you park them, you think, I'll come back to it. The one I was talking about earlier, I mean, that's been there for 7 or 8 years, but you know, I think it's a, you know, it's just a struggle all people have, all artists have, all creative people have, you know. And it can get quite scary because, you know, if you haven't had it for a few weeks, you start thinking, will it ever come back, you know?
Right.
And you know, you put that pressure on yourself, it doesn't come back. So
does being a father inspire your work? Do you ever get a sense of that?
I don't get a sense of it, but I don't think that means it doesn't. You know, I think I think everything inspires your work, and I think your work is just a product of everything you experience and you do. Even if it's like, getting on the bus or something, it can trigger a moment of inspiration. You don't have to have these sort of profoundly inspiring moments to write. Sometimes it's just in the most mundane of things. I find, not that I'm saying having children is mundane, but I think life in general, the day-to-day life is, I'm sure that there's something about being a father that's in all my work, because I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
A busy father.
Yes.
A very busy father. I've got a couple more questions. And by the way, thank you for tuning in, everyone. Kathy, Chris, Keith, Peter, sorry, Paul. If you have any questions for Peter, go ahead, send them our way. I want to talk a little bit about your live shows. Okay, so everyone knows during the pandemic, many music fans were pining to get back into that concert mode, and artists, I'm sure, just as much, if not more. So tell us about a show that you've had with Wolfgang, or an experience, or what's coming down the line for you.
So we've just finished the first big round of shows for the magazine tour, actually. So in fact, played in Amsterdam last week, which was brilliant. A lovely, beautiful city. We did Oslo the month before. Again, another beautiful, beautiful place. Did a lot of shows in the UK. We've got a load more coming up in autumn, September, October, November, and we'll be back on it then. We did a really special show in Birmingham about 3 weeks ago in a place called the Hare and Hounds, which is where I did my first ever show when I was 16, 17. I was a drummer in a band back then, so kind of a guitar-y. It was, an indie band, basically. I must send you some of it, actually. We were talking before this, and I thought you might like some of that old stuff, actually.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
And so, yeah, going back there was a very weird moment during sound check where I was standing on the stage and I looked out and I just thought, oh my God, the last time I stood here was, 32 years ago, when I was really nervous about to play the drums, and I wasn't the world's greatest drummer. And that was quite a strange moment, but then it was a fantastic night, and there was such a good atmosphere in there. That was a great show. We really enjoyed that.
And how have the shows been received by the fans?
Great, and I thought actually there'd be quite a lot of reticence for people to, really go out again. I know it's been a while now since all the doors opened and so on, but I think one of the first shows we did was back in London back in November last year, and I thought, winter. People are worried about COVID still, and just thinking there's going to be a big outbreak in winter. There's going to be no one there, and it was absolutely packed to the rafters. So, and just brilliant. You meet so many fantastic people when you do shows. You meet so many fantastic people who contact you online afterwards. To say how much they enjoyed it. All these things are really special. And I'm aware that these things aren't going to happen forever. So, I savor every moment of it,
One of the things I appreciate about you is, when I reached out to you a while ago, how immediate you were with your response, whether that be a yes or no, maybe so, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way that you connect to your fan base, the way that you seem your feet are on the ground. There's humility, there's kindness. That's not always the case, and I understand, but I just want to let you know that I'm sure many people have shared that same sentiment, that you're very human. You're not this cold, sterile piece of technology.
Yeah, I don't understand. Well, I do know why people do behave like that, and it's there's a lot of ego floating around. And when you've been doing music for so long, I mean, and anyone will tell you who meets Wolfgang, for example, he's the warmest person you will ever meet, and I think that's another reason we like each other so much. There's just so much warmth and friendship, and there's no, I've met people obviously, just as we all have, who, you know, we go back to the trust thing, right? And you can't ultimately trust them. And, you know, we don't look at things like, it's always about the person. It's always about, is this a nice person, a good person? You know, don't just think about what that person can do for me or for us. It's about just engaging like this and just having a nice relationship with someone, a chat with someone or whatever. That's important. And Wolfgang's very much like that as well. You know, he's very, very open and warm and kind, and I kind of love to see it. And it's really nice of you to say that. And I kind of pride myself on just not being the sort of person who will get a message from someone and not respond. I mean, you know, how easy is it to respond to people these days, you know? So if you don't, it's like, you know, you kind of, it's just a bit rude, really. You know, if someone's telling you they like what you do, you know, you kind of, I want to know more about what, you know, it's nice. The two-way thing's nice, right?
Well, I liken it to if I had a business and someone walked into my shop and they took the time and or the money to spend, and then I put up this barrier or I don't say hello, that I've already lost a customer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, you know, I'm not religious in any way, and I'm not even remotely that way inclined, but I do just believe that you just be good to people, and good things generally happen, you know, and life's good, because I think, you know, things only kind of eat away at you if you're just a sort of person that's a bit mean-spirited, really, or you do those things, or it's like, you know, life's too short. You know, someone messages you and tells you they really love a song you did. It's like, that's one of the nicest things that can happen to me. You know, I'm not going to ignore it. You know, it doesn't matter who you are.
Well, isn't that part of the equation on why you do what you do?
Exactly. Yeah.
To connect with people, and hopefully they'll engage with it and have some meaning that they put behind it, some experience.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think we're getting a better picture of your fan base. I imagine them to be very kind, warm-hearted people who just want to learn more about you, and they don't maybe not so much raise you up on this amazing deified pedestal.
Well, yeah, very uncomfortable when anything like that happens anyway, really. Not just in music world, I think just in my life in general. It goes back to my parents and my upbringing. You know, it's all about, you know, I think I'm not one for, you know, when you go to like a restaurant and people serve you, you know, it really makes me uncomfortable. You know, the whole notion of someone serving you.
I remember you sharing that. Yes.
Yeah, because I talked to you about that, right? And it's like, you want to be on the same level as people you interact with. You know, you want to be able to talk to them on a human level. Don't want to just like, you know, I don't want people to call me sir and have like, you know, and carry your drinks through to the next room for you. It's like, oh, stop it, you know.
I can see you being allergic to that. Kathy says a live show with Peter and Wolf is an experience like none other. The Hare and Hounds gig was incredible. Can't wait for the autumn shows. And then she also says, I'd love to know what would be a dream live show for Peter to go to. Either someone who's still with us or someone who he'd wished he had seen.
I mean, there's so many artists I love and admire. I did see, I mean, one of the most beautiful shows I went to. I mean, I really like Neil Finn, who's a songwriter who, you know, he's in Crowded House, and Crowded House have had their moments where they've just, you know, but as a songwriter, I mean, to me, he's just one of the best. And I managed to worm my way into a secret show that was done for TV, because my friend's wife worked in the cloakroom of this place, and there was about 30 people in there. And it was just Neil Finn, and it was Roddy Frame from Aztec Camera, and was it Graham Golden from 10cc, and they were both just sat on bar stools, and they each took it in turn to play a song on the acoustic guitar. And it was like sitting in someone in their lounge with them, you know. And Neil Finn did a couple of songs that are, again, desert island discs for me, but he was about 5 yards from. It was like he was just doing them for me. So there's actually a video online because it was on BBC One, I think. It's called In the Round with Neil Finn.
Okay, I'm going to check this out.
And I'm the only person. You can see a silhouette of a person dancing in a very drunken manner.
That's you.
That's me, unfortunately. I just got too carried away when I found out I was going. But
I love these Peter nuggets. These are great. Okay, so I think this is from Keith. He says, "Do you live in Hebden Bridge? I'm in love with Calderdale."
Oh yeah, Calderdale's the borough, and Hebden Bridge is a town within that borough. Yeah, it's very beautiful. It's on the edge of the Pennines, so we're in a valley here. So we're kind of on the top of halfway up a hill, so the views are really beautiful. It's a stunning place. It really is a stunning place to live, and it's very kind of what's the word? It's a bit of a bubble, really. Hebden Bridge, kind of. It's it attracts kind of arty, creative people.
Okay, so I was going to say, what are the demographics like? It sounds very diverse in terms of.
I wouldn't say it's massively diverse ethnically.
Right.
I mean, it is more diverse than a few places around here, but it's you meet just so many interesting people here, and God, some people hate it when you talk about Hebden Bridge like this. Oh God, but it's
I want to know more because I want to get there because there's an artist by the name of Kirsty Almeida. I don't know if you know her.
I have heard of Kirsty Almeida.
Yeah, she's like a really well-known folk artist. She's also I believe she's a professor, and she's very talented. Anyway, she lives over there, and like I said, I've seen some just glorious images of the place, and it's nice. Well,
you're very, very welcome when you're over here.
What? How many people are in Hebden?
I think there's about 4,000 or 5,000. Sorry, my dog's knocking on the door. I'll just let her in.
Okay, let in. Yeah, let in.
Whenever you mention Hebden Bridge, she knocks on the door. Hello. You come up here. Yeah, she just comes and lies under my feet. So
can we get a little glimpse of her?
Yeah. God, oh, there she is. Look.
Oh, what's her name?
Luna. She's a bit English, aren't you, Luna? Hey?
Luna. That's one of my. Have you ever heard of the band Luna?
Yes, I have. Yeah, that's the guy. He's at Galaxy 500, right?
Yeah, that's Dean Wareham of Galaxy 500.
Yeah. One of their songs sounds a lot like Down Under, Men at Work. Do you know the one I mean? It's got the same chord progression. That's all I remember about Luna.
I'll have to ask Dean about that. I'm not sure. I mean, he's got so many. There's so many songs, so many albums. Sounds like Down Under.
Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Yeah, all right, please. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. He's doing some touring right now. I mean, that's another thing I remember being in England and studying over there. There is like a concert a night I could have gone to easily. Easily.
Yeah.
I mean, I would.
It's very vibrant, the whole live scene. Yeah.
Have you? Forgive me for asking. Have you toured before in the States?
No, actually. No, I've never done a show in the States.
Okay.
Obviously, Wolfgang's played there many, many times, and
right.
So yeah, but not me. I'll let Luna go now.
Have you and Wolfgang talked about coming to the States, particularly San Francisco?
Yeah. And maybe, I mean, obviously, as things get back to normal, hopefully that will happen at some point. That'd be great. Would love to. Got a lot of friends in the States, so it'd be good to have.
When was the last time you were in the States?
The last time I was there was a very long time ago, probably 1999. I was in New York for 10 days. It was great, a very strange experience. It was like, I don't remember that much about it, put it that way. Okay. It was good.
Have you been over to the West Coast? Have you been to San Francisco?
No. I've only ever been to New York, yeah. I've traveled a lot of the world the other way, but that way not so much.
We're gonna, if you don't mind, we're gonna wrap up this conversation with some fun stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay, so right behind me, I don't know if you can see it. I have an album here by Slow Dive.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm not here to show off my record collection. That's nobody wants to see that. However, I have some records over here that are very inspiring, influential.
Yeah.
Can you tell us 2 or 3 records that it's kind of your go-to? 2 a.m., 2 p.m. doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. It does change all the time, but I mean, I talked about Technique before, which I think is a phenomenal record. And again, Neil Finn and the whole Crowded House thing. I mean, Together Alone, which came out in '93, to me is just mind-blowingly beautiful. I think the other thing I like about Neil Finn is because they're considered so cheesy and a bit I don't know what's the word, a bit just a bit corny sometimes. But the thing is, I think that record in particular, because Youth produced that record and there was so much trouble, he was so it sounds like there's a lot of antagonism in the studio, and I think they didn't really gel with him, and he was all very crystals on the mixing desk and very hippie-ish, and getting them to record all the tracks without any clothes on and things like that. He really pushed them, out of their comfort zone, I think. And I think when you hear Neil Finn talk about those sessions, he never talks about them with any great fondness. He talks about them with always as being something that was really uncomfortable. But when you listen to the record that came out of it, I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing album. There's that, and there's just so many. I mean, but I don't tend to listen to albums so much. I listen to just songs on shuffle on my headphones when I'm walking up and down the hills here. So there's just so many. I don't know where to start.
Did you ever get into the Beatles or the Beach Boys, or
the Beatles? I was never massively into. I think it was basically through just overexposure. There was just everywhere, and I'd kind of just heard all the songs about 1 million times before I was even 10 years old. So I didn't have a chance to objectively stand back and just, sometimes you want an element of discovery in music,
Yes.
Felt like just everywhere. So it's only recently, really, because my son's really into the Beatles, that I've started being able to view them through that kind of lens a little bit. And there's a documentary on a couple of weeks ago, a Paul McCartney documentary because he was 80, I think. And they were playing just songs from his, and I just, how can one person write that many incredible songs? It's unbelievable, and he was saying that every day he'd go in the studio and he'd write a song, and every day he would come out the studio with an amazing song, and there was only one day he could ever remember where that didn't happen. And then, but he went in the next day and changed it a bit, and then that turned into this amazing song. And I think, you have to just, it's kind of nice coming back to the Beatles through that whole lens, because my son's really into them. So,
have you ever thought about being a teacher?
It's funny you should say that, because I've been doing a little bit in colleges in the last few months, just being invited as a guest, to talk to the students about music and technology, and I love it, actually. Loved every minute of it, so something I would like to do a bit more of.
Yeah, I can see you really enjoying that gig.
Yeah. Thank you. That's I think that's a real compliment, saying that.
Well, you bring that knowledge, and you bring the warmth, and there's an authenticity to the way you kind of share your experiences that I think people would naturally gravitate and want to learn more from.
Thank you. That really means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So curtains are about to close. I'm gonna ask you some music questions.
Okay.
And these questions range from pop music to 80s to soundtracks.
Yeah.
And what you're going to do is you're going to type in the answer. There's a little chat there. It's a private chat. Nobody
Okay.
else will see it except for me.
Okay.
Now, the people at home watching, you can type in your answer, and everybody's going to see it.
Oh, is that it at the
So,
top there?
yeah, do you see where it says private chat?
Private chat.
It should be to
Oh,
your
yeah. Sorry, my screen was over to the right. So, yeah, okay. Private chat
All right,
on there.
Okay, so we're going to do a practice question.
Okay.
And then I will say this is a 1-pointer, a 2-pointer, or a 3-pointer. A 1 obviously is fairly easy. 3 is pretty difficult. Again, that's subjective. Yes, Kathy, you can play. Christian, you can play. Keith, go ahead and play. Let's get everyone playing. This is a good time. We'll round out the conversation. And by the way, Peter, I did want to say thank you so much for taking your time to speak with us. Much appreciated.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, yeah, of course. Here we go. Here's a practice question for everybody. We're going to start with soundtracks. We're going to do 5. We're going to do this practice one, and then we're going to do 5 questions. Here we go. Name the famous musician/actor who starred in the hit television film show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So you would type in your answer, name the famous musician/actor who starred in the hit television show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I'll give you a clue to anyone out there. He got a little bit of trouble at the Oscars.
How did I do, William? Have I done that properly?
You did, because nobody can see it. And not only did you do it properly, you did it accurately, and that is correct. Will Smith, Get Jiggy With It, was the correct answer. Okay, so that's how we play this game. Here come the 5 real questions. Good luck, everyone. If this elevates your self-esteem, wonderful. All right, here we go. I'm going to say this is a 2-pointer. This is a 2-pointer. Let's go to soundtracks. Which famous composer scored the soundtrack for these movies? Lion King, Inception, and The Dark Knight. Which famous composer scored the soundtrack for these films? The Lion King, Inception, and The Dark Knight. And by the way, for those who are playing at home, you can Google this stuff. You can ask Siri. You can call a friend, whatever you need to do.
I might have got that one wrong.
All right. We did get Peter's answer, and he is correct for 2 points. It is one of my favorite composers, Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer is correct. Nicely done. And by the way, he did a great score. For those of you that like his work, that a lot of people don't know of. He did it for that great movie, the one with Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette, and it was written by Quentin Tarantino.
Well, I'm rubbish with films, so
okay.
I'm a terrible person to ask.
True Romance. That is a great musical score. All right. Kathy said, I asked my husband. All right, here we go. Let's do rock music.
Kathy will get this.
I'm going to say 2 points. 2 points. Which instrument appeared on both It's a Long Way to the Top by AC/DC and Anthem by the sensational Alex Harvey Band? Yes, Christian, thank you. It was True Romance. Which instrument appeared on both It's a Long Way to the Top by AC/DC and Anthem by the sensational Alex Harvey Band? Which instrument?
I don't know this, so I'm going to guess.
All right.
Obviously not. I'd be amazed if that's right.
It's a great guess. The answer is bagpipes.
Ah.
Bagpipes. Yeah. So, did you ever get into heavy metal music? Because Birmingham was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I wouldn't say I got into it, but I did like some of it. You know, Ozzy Osbourne worked in the factory down the road from where I grew up.
Very cool.
Yeah, and Black Sabbath obviously were from not that far away. So yeah,
our claim to fame is Metallica. That's the that's our claim to fame here in the Bay Area. All right, 3 more questions. I'm gonna say another 2-pointer. Kurt Cobain was the lead singer for Nirvana. In what year did Kurt Cobain die? What year did he die?
I remember hearing about when he died. I remember where I was. I was in a kebab shop on Great Hampton Street in Birmingham.
And that's where all the news broke out. Yeah, no, I just got to University of London that year and in April, pouring down rain. And a lot of people that came to University of London were actually from Seattle in the greater Pacific Northwest. And when that news broke, that was pretty amazing. All right.
I've gone with my answer.
All right, let me check. Yes, that is correct. The correct answer was 1994. 1994. April 1994, I believe it was. And that was also right when the incredible seminal 9 Inch Nails album, Downward Spiral, came out, right around there.
Wow.
It's funny how these things just stick out in memory.
Yeah. 28 years ago. Can you believe it?
Oh, God. All right, 2 more. Here we go. 2 more. I'm gonna say a 3-pointer here. We're gonna go back to rock music. What rock group are James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett from? What rock group are James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett from?
James Hetfield.
It's okay, Kathy. You'll get this one. You'll get it. Feel it.
Can you WhatsApp me the answer, Kathy? I'm only joking. Let me think about this. I'm going to just have to guess because... Oh, hang on. I know who I'll guess. It's wrong, isn't it?
There it is. It is not Kiss. The answer sits in the Bay Area. Metallica. Metallica.
I'll know for next time.
All right. Here we go. Last question of the day. Three-pointer. Actually, you know what? We're going to do 80s music. We're going to do 80s.
Yeah. Okay. That's
all right.
That's it.
This is definitely a 3-pointer. Who wrote the hit Bangles song, Manic Monday? Who wrote the hit Bangles song? I actually didn't know this.
Really? I know that one.
There's a lot I don't know. So,
yeah.
Who wrote the hit Bangles song? Did you like any of the 80s music, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I think the 80s was the best decade for music, personally.
Yeah.
I know not a lot of people agree with that sentiment. There was a lot of rubbish, but there was so much amazing stuff appeared in the 80s. It's unreal.
Did you get into Depeche Mode and OMD?
I was never that into OMD, to be honest. I like a couple of the songs, and
Yeah.
I mean, Depeche Mode, I definitely like quite a few songs. I think World in My Eyes is classic,
Yeah.
and the snare sounds on that album are out of this world. I could just listen to the snare sounds off that album for days. I think it was Kevorkian was involved with that. But yeah, I was never massively into the Depeche Mode albums massively. I just like songs,
Here's the answer. The answer is he did get it right. Nicely done for the 3-pointer. It was Prince, everyone. Prince. That wraps up our trivia for today. Peter, thank you so much. You're going to get the last word. When can we expect to see Magazine 2? Will it be vinyl? Are you doing touring? Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, so there'll be vinyl, CD, everything. It's going to be out. It's a little while, actually. It's going to be out in October next year.
Okay.
Partly because of the huge backlog in getting vinyl pressed and the small matter of actually finishing the record. It'll be out. It's scheduled for October 2023. So, and we'll be touring autumn, like I said, and throughout the year next year. Me and Wolfgang love touring together. We just love the whole thing, just quite aside from the shows, just the whole time we spend together is very special. So yeah, be plenty of that.
And all this will also be online through other social media platforms like Bandcamp, Spotify, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it will be everywhere.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy, Christian, everyone else. Thank you for tuning in. And Peter,
thank you.
Best to you and all your vacuuming that you need to do and all the twiddling that you do so well. And thanks for all your creativity and really being an inspiration for many.
Thanks. That's really kind, William. Thank you for inviting me. And thanks to everyone who's taken the time to tune in. It's a real pleasure and an honor to do it.
Thank you. And I will get to Hebden Bridge one day. Promise.
We will have a biscuit together and have a tea.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace, love, and music.
Take care, everyone. Bye.